Decision 82. NBC News and the NBC affiliates across the country continue their coverage of the 1982 elections.
Good evening, I'm Bob Howell in Montgomery, Alabama, and this is Decision 82, the Alabama vote. The governor's race is something that George Wallace will be proud of. 140,629 votes in favor of George Wallace. That's the lead he has. The latest totals, with 50% of the votes counted. George Wallace, 383,215. Emory Falmer, 242,586. Again, a margin of 140,629. Still waiting for the latest vote returns in the Billy Joe Camp Bill Dickinson race. Right now, 487 votes are separating the two. Don Phelps of our staff is the man who is staffing the Bill Dickinson headquarters. Bill Dickinson is at his headquarters right now and is going to be talking with Don Phelps a little bit later on. We're waiting for the candidate to make his way over to the reporter right now. As we said, we've yet to have any results lately in that particular race. Maybe Don will be able to shed a little light on that right now. I can see that Bill Dickinson is right now at his headquarters. Let's go live there now. Don Phelps. Don, the candidate right now at a very nip-and-tuck battle.
That's exactly right, Bob, and he just arrived here just a few minutes ago. And, of course, up until about 8:15, it showed Mr. Camp ahead by our election totals. Has this been going the way that you thought it might have?
Well, of course not. I thought we'd be much further ahead. Montgomery being the largest vote and closing the polls last, I don't know what percent is still out, so there's no way to predict this. I just by telephone found out I'm about 4,000 votes ahead in Houston County. I don't know if this has been reflected in the totals that you're running at the station or not. So, but it was like 9 to 5,000 rough figures in Houston County. And so I think between Houston and Montgomery, that'll make the difference. And we're waiting for Montgomery, and come on, Montgomery, you know, that's home. So just as soon as we get the returns, I'll be back talking with you. And I think that those two metropolitan counties will really be the difference. So, no, I've been very surprised at how close the race was. I knew it was a tough race, but I think the closest I've ever come was 53% before. This looks like it'll be even closer than that. But hopefully the forces are right will prevail.
What do you attribute to the closeness of this race?
Oh, well, of course, the closeness of the race has to do almost 100% with Wallace, because Mr. Camp hasn't pointed to anything that he's done. You know, he, as president of the Public Service Commission, he hadn't lowered rates, you know. So anyway, I would say just is the affinity between him and Wallace, and identification, and the straight ticket voting, and the tremendous, when it's all boiled down, Wallace will be running ahead of Falmer considerably in the 2nd District, and I'll have to run ahead of my opponent and eat into what had been the Wallace vote if I'm ultimately successful, which it's too late to do anything about it now except hope, but we're hoping.
Were you surprised by the voter turnout, the heavy turnout?
No, really, beautiful day, no problems. I can't remember on November 2nd there was such a pretty day. And this makes for a great voter turnout, and that makes for the difference. So I'm not surprised at the turnout, because there was a great deal of interest. And we'll just wait about 30 minutes and see what, if the Houston County totals are reflected in what you're running at the station, and see what the final for Montgomery is. And it's been sort of a wash elsewhere, and as you know, we're about even. I don't even know the latest totals. Was I ahead or behind?
You were a little bit behind the last totals we checked, and we're going to go back to the station just a few minutes and check the latest totals on that. But
I'll have to hurry if I'm behind.
Okay. That's the latest from here, Bob. Of course, we're waiting for about 30 minutes from now. That's when we should have some indication on both the Montgomery and Houston County vote. That's the vote that they've been counting on here all night. Don Phelps reporting from the Dickinson headquarters at the Governor's House Motel.
Thank you very much, Don. The very latest totals in now show that the difference between Billy Joe Camp and Bill Dickinson is 520 votes. Bill Dickinson trailing Billy Joe Camp by 520 votes. We'll be back with more on Decision 82, the Alabama vote, in a moment. Stay with us.
Now, Estee Lauder helps skin care become skin repair. Introducing her new Night Repair, a cellular recovery complex that works every night to help speed the natural repair of cell damage from the day's ultraviolet light. Estee Lauder's new Night Repair. There has never been any beauty treatment like it. Use it and wake up to better looking skin. Night Repair, available now at Gaffer's.
I really like my Farm Bureau agent.
My agent has been real good to me.
She does a good job. She tell you like it is.
They seem to be real professional and to know their business and to take their occupation seriously.
Well, I have found that Farm Bureau Insurance has consistently quoted me the lowest rates.
That's what's impressed me very much about Farm Bureau.
The best does cost less. Farm Bureau Insurance.
Winter holidays just wouldn't be holidays without turkey, right, boys? I'm Bill Bates at Bates Turkey Farm. Just like when my dad started years ago, we still cook our smoked turkeys with green hickory wood. Nothing is added except natural preservatives and spices. None of those things that take away the real home-cooked flavor. Our turkeys are homegrown and hand-prepared. No shortcuts sacrificing taste and quality. We ship right from our smoker to your front door. Order yours now for Thanksgiving and Christmas.
The second congressional district race may be close, but in the governor's race, it is not close. With now 51% of the boxes reporting, here's the way it looks. George Wallace appears to be going in for the fourth term. He has now expanded his lead over Emory Falmer to 146,176 votes. That's the difference. As you can see, it is George Wallace, 394,434 votes. Emory Falmer, 248,258. And we also have, we've received a number of calls this evening about the local races in our area. And speaking for Montgomery County, we're having some difficulty in getting the votes tallied at the Montgomery County Courthouse as far as the specific numbers in the races. We've got a couple of House races, several judicial races. Also, we've got we've got the sheriff's race that we're going to be looking at. And as soon as we have those totals, I can assure you we'll be delighted to pass those totals on to you. Now, Vaughan Road, a heavy voter turnout also at the Vaughan Road School.
And it went predictably in the governor's race. Emory Falmer, a landslide winner at Vaughan Road, 3,802 votes to 1,105 for Wallace. Bill Dickinson, we were just talking to Bill, did awfully well out there, 3,839 votes to 2,319 for Billy Joe Camp. I will glance down at, for example, the House race, 81st District. Perry Hooper carried Vaughan Road, 2,735 to 2,074. The other races local are just overwhelmingly Democratic. I could just sum it up that way without calling all the rolls. With the exception of Judge Perry Hooper, the Republican, who is running awfully strong in all the boxes I've seen in Montgomery. He appears to be a sort of a stick out among the Republicans locally, other than Emory, of course.
And again, this has been the year for the father and son combination on the ballot. In fact, in the Democratic primary back on September 7th, we had a father and two sons appearing on the ballot.
So today, that had to be a first. The Folsom family.
That's right.
Jack and Jim Jr. and Big Jim.
We just expected a couple of them to grab a guitar and start singing, have the Folsom family singers on the ballot. But now we're looking on the Republican side with Perry Hooper Sr. and Jr. with the Circuit Court judge and in House District 81.
Bob, we may have some more sons, second generations in the future of prominent politicians.
I can imagine so. And I'm sure a lot of people are thinking about that in more than one race. The second congressional district race is one that is surprising perhaps some people who were not thinking it would be this close this soon. Billy Joe Camp is the Democratic nominee, the man who became well known as far back as 1972. He was the man that was giving out the information about Governor George Wallace after the assassination attempt in May of 1972 in Laurel, Maryland. We have more on the Billy Joe Camp headquarters and the mood of the candidates in this report from Mac Carmack.
Billy Joe Camp is with us tonight. We're back at camp headquarters at the Diplomat Inn. Mr. Camp, things have changed a little bit since we last spoke, but do you have some outside sources feeding you information from the outlying areas? How does it look right now?
Well, Mike, we're still in a position of being very cautiously, guardedly optimistic. At the last count, we still had a lead total, and we know we've carried some of the counties, Pike County and Covington County. But we're waiting to watch the returns come in, and looks like it's going to be a pretty long night here, you know. But still, we're optimistic about it, and as long as we can hold on to the lead, well, that's the name of the game, I reckon.
Seems like Billy Joe Camp is walking around the room a little more nervous than usual tonight.
Well, of course, and this was expected, I think. But so far, we're pleased and just hoping, and as I said before, we're hoping and praying that everything will come out.
Are the votes going about the way you had thought they would before the polls closed today?
Well, yes, I never really tried to predict how the votes are going to go. I felt like in the last 10 days of the campaign there'd been a real good movement toward our effort. And I think that's evident in the vote tally here tonight. And we see the television totals. Of course, we do not know what areas have been fed into that and which areas are still holding out. And so we just have to wait on them. I expected this to be a close race, and it looks like it's going to be.
All right, best of luck, and we'll stay with you throughout the night.
Thank you, Mac.
Thanks, Mr. Camp. We'll check back later in at the camp headquarters at the Diplomat Inn.
Matt Carmack with that videotape report. Dennis Latham of our staff is the man who is live at the Emery-Falmer campaign, and a major development, Dennis.
Yes, Bob, what started out this evening as optimism has slowly eroded away as the night has gone by, and now with Mr. Wallace leading Mr. Falmer by probably close to 150,000 votes, we've been told by Tom Coker, the campaign manager for Mr. Falmer, that Mr. Falmer should be making an appearance here at about 9:30. Mr. Coker, you told me earlier that you've checked some of the totals in counties like Baldwin, that you thought you would win, Montgomery, that you won, but not by as much of a margin. What do you think has happened?
Well, obviously we're not doing as well in some of the counties that we expected to. We're doing our own vote count. We don't have any results in from Jefferson yet, or Shelby County, or some of the other North Alabama counties, but it's obvious that Governor Wallace is widening his lead, and we feel like that we will close the gap considerably, and I feel that in the next 25-30 minutes, Mayo will have a statement for the press.
Do you think that statement will be his concession of the election?
Well, I'll let you wait for that statement.
Does it look very hopeful that he'll be making a victory speech?
Well, I think you've seen the same results I have. I don't think it looks too promising at this time, but I'm not one to quit yet.
What would it take at the last minute for Emery-Falmer to beat George Wallace?
Well, it'd take an excellent vote in Jefferson and Shelby and some of the fringe counties around there, Coleman County, Walker County, some of those counties that I have not seen any results on.
Thank you, Mr. Coker. Earlier in the evening, Mr. Falmer told us that he wouldn't be hiding, that he would be out amongst the people who had worked hard for him. But for about the last hour and a half, he's been in a room somewhere talking with people. We've been trying to reach him. And like I said, about 9:30, he should be out here. We'll know what he has to say at that time. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News at the Governor's House Motel.
Thanks very much, Dennis. The latest vote total now shows the gap widened to a 148,000 vote lead for George Wallace. Back with more in a moment.
Join the hundreds of people gathered for Family Day 82 on Sunday, November the 7th. Bible school at 9 a.m., worship at 10:15. Family Day 82 at the Highland Church of Christ at Carriage Hills.
Wallpaper Works opens this week, and the key word is discount. Every day on wallpaper, mini blinds, drapery fabric, and brass hardware. No matter what your style, Wallpaper Works, 1700 Norman Bridge Road. Tomorrow from 2 to 5 p.m., Babyland General Hospital's doctor is giving free checkups for your adopted baby during the 5th anniversary 5-day celebration at the Little House. WSFA TV 12, Montgomery.
Decision 82, the Alabama vote, is brought to you in part by WIGC FM Radio, FM 106. Welcome into God's country. First Montgomery Bank, people serving people. Anders Bookstore, the superstore in Auburn, and Heinold Commodities, professionals in futures.
I'm Bob Howell. We're delighted that you could be with us on Election Day and this night's coverage of what's happening across the state of Alabama. It looks as though George Wallace is going to be governor again. We can't say with any sort of certainty what is going to happen in the 2nd Congressional District, though. Billy Joe Camp and Bill Dickinson are waging a one-on-one battle between the Republican and the Democrat, the 9-term congressman versus the Public Service Commission president. And years ago, the Public Service Commission was not necessarily always to be looked on as a springboard to higher political office, because the Public Service Commission has not always been a very popular state agency with a lot of people across the state.
As I mentioned earlier in the evening, it's been used many times as a springboard, but rarely has it been used with any success. Again, it's not a job that's going to make a lot of friends. You're going to make somebody mad on the PSC when you're dealing with utility rates. Incidentally, talking about Dickinson and Camp, we might mention that there are only 2 congressional races yet to be resolved in Alabama. All the others, the incumbents have been declared winners by landslides. Jack Edwards in Mobile, Bill Nichols, Ronnie Flippo, Tom Bevel was unopposed. I'm missing one somewhere in there. Who am I missing? Richard Shelby.
7th District.
Now, we have not even talked about it. We haven't shown you any numbers, but there is a battle just like Camp and Dickinson going on in Birmingham tonight.
Albert Lee Smith and Erdrich.
It's the last totals I saw, and they were quite early, were 15,000 each. I mean, maybe just 300 or 400 votes apart. It's a very close race up there.
This Ben Erdrich has really come on strong in Jefferson County, and perhaps there's a little Republican backlash going against Albert Lee Smith.
Right, he is so new himself. He just won 2 years ago. He defeated Buchanan, who was one of the original 5 who went in with a Goldwater sweep in '64. And of course, Smith defeated him a couple of years ago, charging that he was not nearly as conservative as he should have been, too liberal to be a Republican. And now Albert Lee is getting maybe caught in the Reaganomics crunch up there. I don't know. There's a great deal of unemployment in Birmingham. U.S. Steel, the big employer, has got all manner of problems, and apparently it's working to the very distinct advantage of Ben.
It was interesting to note in an interview today that Governor James did with us after he had voted. He had quite a few things to say, and one of the things he was asked about was the politicians' ability to really do anything about the job situation. And Governor James very candidly said that he had never seen a politician who had ever created a job in the private sector. And he said he really didn't expect any politician, whether it be the governor or anyone on down, that could actually physically materialize a job anywhere in the state of Alabama.
Well, it's a fact of life. I think all of us know that the economy nationally has caused the serious problems in Alabama and elsewhere. And there's not a thing that a governor could have done about the economy. He could do nothing about the 20% interest rates, and nor can the next governor. But if the economy turns around and jobs come in, then he takes credit. He's in the office. That's the way the game is played. But a governor of no governor, California, New York, or Alabama, is going to be able to just by himself turn the economy around. It doesn't work that way, and I think most Alabamians realize that. But both these candidates tonight have talked about it because they knew that was a big issue.
But at the same time, we're seeing inflation coming down, we're seeing interest rates coming down, but of course the price you pay, usually it's hinged almost like a teeter board. When you get the inflation rate down, you get the unemployment rate up. So perhaps we're somewhere in the middle between the extremes. One never knows.
Well, certainly we all hope that whoever, whether it's Reagan or the next president, whoever, that this economy does turn around, because there's a great deal of suffering out there, a great deal of joblessness. But we are vastly better off. Those of us fortunate enough to have a job and get a paycheck are vastly better off than we were 6 months or 12 months ago.
Billy Joe Camp now has increased his lead, by the way, all the way up to 640 votes. We're talking about a dead heat, 50-50. As you can see there is the count. 51,959 votes for Billy Joe Camp. Bill Dickinson, 51,316. And that's the way it is, 50-50, right down the middle. We'll be back with more in just a moment. Save that thought. Stay with us. We understand now that former Governor George Wallace is making his way to his headquarters. Chris Grimshaw and the rest of the staff are standing by. Let's find out what's going on there.
Ladies and gentlemen, Governor George C. Wallace!
And ladies and gentlemen, obviously a momentary technical problem with the audio portion of the picture. Lisa Wallace, along with former governor and now the man who appears to be governor, George Wallace.
Fellas, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very sorry that the last week of this race sort of took my voice. But I do want to thank all the people of Alabama for considering us in the governor's race, those who supported us, those who considered our candidacy, whether they voted for us or not. You know, we have quite a number of problems in our state, as we have throughout every state in the Union and the United States. So I would like to ask the people of Alabama tonight, those that did not support me, to join with those that did, and help us together attack the problems that affect Alabamians adversely. We have an economic recession in this country, and I want to congratulate my opponent and tell Mayor Farmer that he ran a splendid race. He's a very formidable opponent, and I would like for those that supported him to now join us, helping to bring and build a better Alabama. This is really the night. This is really the night that I need my voice, but it's a night I don't have it. But I do want to thank the people of Alabama who worked for me, all of you who are here tonight, and to say that the first thing I'm going to do is organize the task forces that I told the people about in the campaign. I've written several hundred of the leading Alabamians in all activities in our state, labor, management, agriculture, you name it, asking them to give me their ideas. And then we were going to set up a task force using their brains and their minds to help us offer some solutions to some of the problems we have in our state. Many of these people that I wrote and asked to join with me are those who did not support me for governor. But that's all right, because I'm the governor of all of those, whether they voted for me or not. And I do not want to accept this election in a boastful attitude. I want to thank the Lord for having let me again serve the people of Alabama. And I do know that I've asked him to give me the guidance and leadership and the aid that I will need in helping to confront the problems that face Alabama during the ensuing 4 years ahead of us. So my friends, that's about all I have to say. I'm sorry I lost my voice. I could really make a speech tonight with all this kind of crowd here tonight, you know. I could. But I want to thank all of you who worked actively, those out watching and listening who voted for me, and tell those who didn't vote for me, now let's all join together and let's all stand up for Alabama. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I love all of you. I love all of you, and I'm just sorry that I cannot talk any further because my voice left me last week when we had such tremendous crowds where I expected only a few people, and it overdid my voice. But I'll tell you one thing. We did win tonight, didn't we? We all... And if we decide to run again, we'll take them on again. But my friends, I want to thank my family, my wife, all of my family for standing behind me during these long hours. We have campaigned for 5 months. My good friend Mayor Emery Farmer only had to campaign 1 time. We had to campaign 3. So I'm glad it's over. Ended up in victory, and I call upon you all to pray for me during the next years because we're going to need your prayers and help to help Alabama come out of this recession in which we are now in. I'm going to do the best I can with my ability and my experience to do that for the people of Alabama. Thank you very much. May God bless you.
Former Governor John Patterson on the platform
Governor
there.
Patterson here, an old friend of mine. I'm glad I didn't have to run against him because I ran against him one time and he beat the heck out of me. God bless you, Alabama. God bless you, and I tell you.
Max here.
Huh?
Max here.
Yes, tonight we have with us someone who appeared on several occasions with us and was here last time. Is a man who is dying with terminal cancer. Mike McCarley, who is walking all the federal highways raising money for the comprehensive cancer clinic in Birmingham, Alabama, at the University of Alabama Medical School. And as he says, every step he takes in the name of his Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. So, Mike, God bless you. I appreciate your support. I appreciate your support. I want to tell the people of Alabama out there that I may sound weak in my voice, but this will soon end. I'm still strong and healthy and good. Have a long way to go yet. Thank you very much.
All I've got is ingrowing toenails, Governor.
Thank you.
They want him out. They want you back down, Governor. Make him an out.
And that is the scene at the Wallace campaign headquarters on the Eastern Bypass in Montgomery, Alabama. The new governor, the former governor, and the governor that's going to be leading the state for the next 4 years will be holding a news conference shortly. We'll be staffing that. We'll bring you a live report on that a little later on. Right now, we're going to have to take a commercial break. We'll be back with more on Decision 82, the Alabama vote. Please stay with us.
Taxes, inflation, procrastination, uncertainty. These are the enemies of financial growth. Back in 1887, A.G. Edwards opened their first office in St. Louis. 200 offices and 1,700 investment brokers later, A.G. Edwards is still fighting to keep your money strong in the 80s. Big business, small business, personal business, A.G. Edwards is in business to help you invest your assets. A pretty important responsibility. Being responsible is what it takes to fight the enemies of financial growth. A.G. Edwards, member SIPC.
Exciting through and through. We're never through serving you. Discover Gavers for yourself.
If your life seems empty and meaningless, and you're searching for something more, remember the words of Jesus, who said, "Whoever drinks the water that I give him will never be thirsty again. A spring will provide him eternal life." Jesus Christ can change your life. Come worship with us at Eastern Hills Baptist Church and know the true joy that only Christ can bring.
May come as no surprise, the Associated Press only moments ago signaled a bulletin saying the Associated Press elects George Wallace governor. Now, let's go back to the George Wallace campaign headquarters. As you can see, this is the scene. Chris Grimshaw of our staff is at this moment readying himself. We'll be going back momentarily to talk with Chris and find out exactly how things happen this evening out there. We noticed that a lot of the familiar faces from the Wallace campaign headquarters were gathered around the candidate. We saw Doug Benton. There's been a lot of concern about Doug's health because in the heat, literally in the heat of the earlier campaign, he had a bout with some illness. I'm glad to see that Doug is back out there, and he's a man that's been with the Wallace campaign for a long time, the publicity and information director in the last administration.
Forgive me for reminiscing, but I recall so distinctly that campaign that Governor Wallace referred to a moment ago, John Patterson, 58, and it was a dandy. No one thought John Patterson could win. We thought the race was between Wallace and Jimmy Faulkner in that year. Faulkner had been runner-up 4 years before. He was the first television to just come around in Alabama.
Was it in 58, right?
54, and then 58. In 54, he used the talkathon. He would answer. He was live television, and they would call in, and it was quite the thing. But folks would beat his brains out anyhow. But he was runner-up, and then Patterson came out of nowhere and wore him out. The only man ever to beat George Wallace, and he acknowledged that tonight. But a lot of familiar faces. You were talking about Doug Benton. It was indeed heat exhaustion that he suffered on election night. I guess the first primary, or maybe the runoff, one of the two.
Yes.
But good to see Doug back at the mic, which is where he's been a lot of times.
A lot of time, been a lot of flatbed trailers that he stood on.
A lot of flatbed trailers.
Right. As we said a moment ago, Chris Grimshaw is at the Wallace campaign headquarters. Governor Wallace, because of that lingering problem that he's had with laryngitis and an obvious side effect of a lot of campaigning and a lot of speeches, has canceled the news conference that he had scheduled immediately following that campaign appearance. Let's go out live to Chris now. Chris, needless to say, the atmosphere is very jubilant, and the people are very happy that their campaign strategy paid off tonight.
Yes, Bob, they were somewhat enthused about their victory this evening, a victory that Mr. Wallace claimed just several minutes ago, and they are quite enthused with the speech that Mr. Wallace gave, even though it was somewhat of a short speech. He said that his voice had caused him some problems during the past week with laryngitis, and that he had some difficulty in delivering his speech. His speech, however, provided some insight into how he was accepting this victory of his. He said he was not going to be boastful about it, and he in fact called Mr. Farmer my good friend in saying that he ran an admirable race. But at the same time, Mr. Wallace indicated that, and I don't want to presume to say that Mr. Wallace was surprised at the size of his victory, but he did have somewhat of an astonished tone to his voice when he said, "We did win, didn't we?" as if to impress the size of margin that he won this race by. Mr. Wallace only spoke for about 5 or 6 minutes during his speech this evening, and the only campaign issue that he talked about during his speech was the effort to form a task force of about 200 or so. Anyway, he said he had written letters to about 200 businessmen asking them for ideas on how to move Alabama forward during the next 4 years. He did not say how large of a task force that he had, but he reminded the supporters here that he would in fact go ahead with that plan for the task force and draw those ideas from the industrial and commercial people of Alabama. During the speech, Mr. Wallace made several mentions about Mr. Farmer. One of those mentions drew a large boo from the audience, but that was the only time the audience had any negative response. But Mr. Farmer continued with what was a positive acceptance speech here at the Wallace headquarters. Bob?
Okay, Chris, can you hear me, Chris?
Yeah,
okay.
Kind of.
Kind of, okay. The governor made reference to doing it again and also to his health. So he's looking down the road perhaps to another term.
Well, I don't think Mr. Wallace has ever said no to the future. The only thing that I have ever heard him totally turn down in the future politically has been a presidential campaign. On a number of occasions, Mr. Wallace has been asked about his future state political aspirations, and he has only said, well, right now we've got to win this particular race, and that's on down the road, and we'll see where we are when we get there. This evening was perhaps the most optimistic or the most encouragement that he has given his supporters that he might consider another bid 4 years from now. And it could be that he was somewhat overwhelmed with his victory this evening, and that just made him think about the possibility 4 years from now.
Okay, Chris, thank you very much. Chris Grimshaw live, an admirable job all along on the campaign trail. We'll be back with more in a moment.
Now, Estee Lauder helps skin care become skin repair. Introducing her new Night Repair, a cellular recovery complex that works every night to help speed the natural repair of cell damage from the day's ultraviolet light. Estee Lauder's new Night Repair. There has never been any beauty treatment like it. Use it and wake up to better-looking skin. Night Repair, available now at Gayfers.
At First Montgomery Bank, we believe that people bank with people. And to thank you for your support, we're offering a $15 cash bonus with each new $10,000 money market certificate of deposit. Just think, you'll earn high interest, half security, and get a $15 cash bonus. And no one pays a higher rate of interest on a 6-month money market CD than First Montgomery Bank. Come bank with us first.
First Montgomery Bank.
This 25-inch Magnavox color console is only $539 at the record shop. I'm Raymond Cohen, and our pre-holiday sale features tremendous Magnavox values. A 19-inch cable-ready Magnavox is $399. This 13-inch Magnavox Color Portable is $299. Add a video recorder to your TV at a low price of $499. And this Magnavox AM/FM stereo with cassette is only $269. Great Magnavox prices and service, too, at the record shop, Eastern Bypass.
We're going to be back in a moment after going back with NBC. We'll be back at 9:30. It is 9:30. We'll be back in a half hour. Again, we're having problems getting the totals from Montgomery County Courthouse, but we will have those as soon as they are available. They're just simply, apparently, not getting around to counting them at this particular hour. We'll be back with more, including a visit with Emery Falmer when we return.
Tomorrow from 2 to 5 p.m., Babyland General Hospital's doctor is giving free checkups for your adopted baby.